Hello and welcome to another Sunday online reflection here from Pollock Shields Church of Scotland. Today's reflection is a collaboration between myself and our minister, Reverend David Black, and we hope that this will contribute to your experience of worship during this time of lockdown. Our reading today is from the book of Acts, chapter 1, verses 6 to 11. When the apostles met together with Jesus, they asked him, "Lord, will you at this time give the kingdom back to Israel?" Jesus said to them, "The times and occasions are set by my Father's own authority, and it is not for you to know when they will be. But when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you will be filled with power, and you will be witnesses for me in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." After saying this, he was taken up to heaven as they watched him, and a cloud hid him from their sight. They still had their eyes fixed on the sky as he went away, when two men dressed in white suddenly stood beside them and said, "Galileans, why are you standing there looking up at the sky? This Jesus who was taken from you into heaven will come back in the same way that you saw him go to heaven." Luke regarded the story of the Ascension so important that he recalls it not once but twice. Once at the end of the Gospel according to Luke, and once again in the book of Acts. It's very telling that the disciples are depicted as standing staring at the heavens after Jesus' ascension in the second version. They would probably have had a lot of emotions at that time. For a few weeks after Easter, Jesus had been a physical presence among them. For Jesus' disciples and the other people he came into contact with, this would have been a precious time filled with healing and new insight into who he was and what he came to do. But all of this ended when Jesus ascended into heaven. It might have been a bittersweet experience for the disciples. They were left behind with a very specific task to take the gospel to the ends of the earth. But before this, they were also warned by Jesus before the Easter events that this is not going to be an easy task. As they stood there watching Jesus ascend, they might have paused for a moment because they knew that the hard part would wait for them as soon as they turned to go on with their mission. It's hard to say what they were thinking, impossible, in fact. But if we looked at the apostles' lives from this moment on, we see that it was indeed filled with triumph, but also with all kinds of hardship. The apostles all died terrible deaths, except for John, as far as we can tell. A previous colleague of mine in South Africa once wrote about the Ascension of Christ, recalling the children's Bible his parents had read to him as a child. He remembers the beautiful pictures in this Bible, and especially the one about Jesus' ascension. He recalls that the pictures show Jesus ascending on a cloud with his hands outstretched, but the wounds of the crucifixion still visible on his hands. This thought had always stayed with him, that some physical token of the ugliness of the crucifixion ascended into heaven on Jesus' own body. This has always been a very powerful image for me. The thought that Jesus ascended into heaven while taking with him a token of human rejection, of pain, of suffering and death. Heaven, we are all taught from a young age, is a place where there is no suffering and everything is just beautiful and wonderful. And I believe it is, but I find it comforting thinking about Jesus carrying his wounds into that place. That from where he reigns, he does so as a wounded Messiah, as a wounded healer, one who knows what suffering is, one who understands rejection and pain. When Jesus ascended into heaven, the scars of human suffering ascended with him. Might this be something that gave the apostles and all Jesus' followers hope in the time to come? Did they perhaps remind themselves that Jesus ascended with the wounds of the cross, and that in heaven, whatever heaven may be like, Jesus knew their pain and had the tokens of suffering on his body, suffering that he knew and understood? This brings me to my final thought. As we celebrate Ascension, what does this mean for us in the time we live in? A time where human suffering is all around us. What does this mean for those who have lost loved ones in this time? For those suffering from mental or physical illness? For those who feel isolated, lonely, and rejected? Does ascension merely mean that Jesus went away, or might it be a comforting thought that in the most perfect of places, where there is no pain, the scars of human pain serve as a lasting reminder of God's love and compassion for us?